Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Tennessee Titans and their season this past season. Talk about the breakdown of it. We're going to talk about key free agents to be that are on the team and potential free agent targets outside of the building. That and more on this episode of Touring the AFC South. But of course, before we get started with every show, we always talk about, maybe something in terms of like a get off your chest moment, whether it may be, football or it may be something outside of football. This episode, it's going to be something outside of football. And of course, it's Women's History Month. So I want to talk about AU pro basketball. I'm going to talk about that because I got the opportunity to cover that because it was actually here in Nashville for the entire season. Started on February 5th and ended on March 2nd, and it was nonstop action. For those that aren't aware of what AU pro basketball is, basically what AU pro basketball is that it's basically you have 40 players on the entire roster, right? And how it goes is you have a draft every week. There's captains, 4 captains. You have a draft every week. Those at the end of the week, whoever scores the most for that week, those 4 become captains. And then another draft happens and a whole new team. And then another draft happens the next week. Another draft happens the next week. At the end of that, the person with the most points individually is the winner. And this year it went to Maddie Seacrest, which she's from Villanova, is playing for the Dallas Wings in the WNBA. There were players like Lexi Brown's playing for the Seattle Storm now. Isabel Harrison just signed with the New York Liberty. I mean, you had plenty of players. Crystal Bradford is another person to watch out for. She played some good basketball. Elizabeth Williams plays for the Chicago Sky. There's plenty of different players. Kia Nurse is another WNBA player that was there. It was a lot of Sydney Colson. Got to throw her out there, playing for the Indiana Fever next year. But a lot of good basketball and a lot of good things to watch and talk about. And I just had to salute those women who basically they set attendance records this year. The best season of attendance in AU pro basketball history. Merchandise sales was over 100% increased. 151% if I'm correct. It was amazing to watch, and glad that Nashville was receptive, and because of that, now AU pro basketball will be back in Nashville for the 2026 and 2027 seasons. They signed a multi-year deal. Gotta love it. Salute to those women that are out there playing great, and did amazing things on the court downtown Nashville Municipal Auditorium. Thank you. All right. Just had to put that out there because I thoroughly enjoyed watching every single game, talking to players, meeting players, and they were so hospitable towards the fans. Doing autographs after the game, talking, taking pictures, everything was awesome. But of course, that's the get off your chest segment in a good way for this episode. But some things that happened pretty bad this past season for the Tennessee Titans. They didn't necessarily end up where some thought they would be. The Titans, of course, like I mentioned, they spent a lot of money this season, this offseason, bringing in Jerry Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie, bringing in, another center from name escapes me right now, but bringing in the starting center from one of the number 1 ranked pass centers in the NFL last year. Bringing in just a lot of good different pieces and thinking, hey, maybe this team's got a shot. It depends upon the play of the quarterback. But unfortunately, the play of the quarterback did not show up. And then, people were thinking, hey, if they get solid play on the quarterback, then, they could potentially make a run or make a run for the division or potentially the playoffs. That didn't happen. That did not happen because, of course, they finished 3-14. And Will Levis, definitely He had some issues in terms down the stretch. He had some issues throughout the games as well, just making decisions that are just weren't the correct decisions, and unfortunately, it cost the Titans games and possessions and touchdowns as well. As in giving up touchdowns to the other teams in terms of interception returns. So that hurt, as well as injuries up front, injuries. Just happening at the wrong time in the wrong positions. Definitely wasn't a good thing for them offensively. Titans, I would say they've got some work to do in terms of getting some continuity offensively. It just did not come together, did not happen. And of course, Levis actually didn't finish the season as the starter. He got pulled, then he got put back and got pulled. It's kind of the last game he kind of, it kind of was a little bit of a rotating chairs in the last game for some reason, but it is what it is, and that's the way, way it was unfortunately. But some positive news. Tony Pollard, I'm not Tony Bradley, Tony Pollard, at running back was a very, very, very good signing for them. Definitely a good value, and definitely did his thing. I can appreciate the hard nosed running that some thought he may not be able to do. He hit the corners on a couple of his runs, and he also caught the ball out of the backfield. That was really good, and something that they needed at the running back position. At one point, he was the second highest in terms of rushing yards in the AFC behind Derrick Henry, which I know plenty of people don't want to hear about Derrick Henry because he's not with the Titans anymore. But hey, he still was a long time here in Nashville playing for the Tennessee Titans. Another good thing for the season was Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, he got 1,000 yards again. He became the 9th player in NFL history to get 1,000 yards for 3 different NFL franchises. Those franchises are the Atlanta Falcons, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Tennessee Titans now. So congrats to him on that. I know he wishes, more wins and things like that went along with it, but hey, gotta, salute him for that incredible accomplishment. Now, defensively, the Titans came out tough. They had L'Jarius Sneed, like I mentioned, Chidobe Awuzie. They brought Sneed via trade. They brought in Awuzie as a free agent from the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, brought in a few other pieces as well, thinking, okay, this defense is going to be tough. And they were tough at times, but also they gave up big plays. Chidobe and L'Jarius were injured a good bit of the season. So, you had young players like Jarvis Brownlee out there and Roger McCreary as well. And sometimes their defense was taking advantage of sometimes because of that youth with big plays given up. Now, I know sometimes it can be the safety's fault as well, but I would say Amani Hooker probably had one of his best seasons as a Tennessee Titans safety, despite all that was going around with him in terms of, the people around him. But yeah, unfortunately, it just did not. The things did not happen. Giving up big plays, being run against sometimes, and just having just bad things happen at the wrong time, like a penalty or something of that nature. Unfortunately, that plagued this Titans defense, and they finished the season again 3-14. But they do have a solid. They have some solid core pieces. They are, allowing Harold Landry to seek a trade. He'd be 17.5 million against the cap, by the way. So that's one thing there. So he's pretty much their top sack guy. You don't hear of a plan to replace him right now, but we'll see what happens. Of course, we do have the free agency coming up. We do also have the draft. And of course, with the QB position, we don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to be Will Levis try to back out there again? I know some fans don't want to hear that. Is it going to be bringing competition for Will Levis or a starter or a veteran starter? Is it going to be a rookie that they draft? We're going to go into, maybe draft stuff a little bit later and another time. But what we're going to focus on this episode is free agency additions to the team. We're going to get into what those additions could be. Of course, they've got some key free agents on their team that they have to address first. We're going to talk about those first, but we do have to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back on Touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off of these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the break, I got to talk about some potential decisions on the Titans roster. They've got a couple guys that is going to make you think maybe they need to bring him back if it's potentially for the right price. And there's none other than one gentleman that seems to fit that bill to a T. His name, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Yeah, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 32 receptions, 497 yards, and 9 touchdown receptions this past season. It just seems like he always found a way on the field all the time during his entire time being here with Tennessee. When they've tried to replace him over and over and over and over again, he just finds a way on the field. And when he gets on the field, he makes plays. So now he's getting ready to hit free agency. He's at a career 14.1 yards per catch and 126 in 126 career receptions. Not bad at all. I mean, he makes plays. He's not necessarily the fastest guy, but he's not the slowest guy either. But he makes big plays and he runs solid routes. To me, he's a very competent wide receiver and a guy for the right price you keep around, to be honest. Looking at his estimated amount, $4 million a season, what is kind of estimated for him to make next year, or in terms of with a new contract, which would be something I think the Titans can afford. It's just a matter of, one, do they want to bring him back? Two, does he want to come back? And three, can they meet on the right number? If they can do all three of those things and he wants to come back, then I can see him returning to the Tennessee Titans. Now, do I think he needs to be the number 2 receiver or anything like that? I'm not saying that much, but hey, at least at your worst, he can be your third wide receiver because he is productive when he does get his opportunities to catch the football. Another guy that's going to be an interesting decision is going to be guard Dylan Radunz. Now, he wasn't always a guard. He was actually a tackle when he first got into the NFL from North Dakota State, which is home to Mr. Carson Wentz as well. Indianapolis Colts fans probably don't want to hear that. But anyway, this is a Titans show. But Dylan Radunz was a tackle when he first came into the NFL, and he just never really fit at that position at the NFL level, never really could withstand any of the pressure or any of those different things that happen at the tackle position consistently. So they moved him to guard. And Bill Callahan, who is Brian's dad, who's the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, he's the offensive. Bill Callahan is the offensive line coach. And he worked with Dylan Radunz, and they got a lot of rave reviews in terms of the work he was doing in training camp. So people expected maybe to see you might see the best that Dylan Radunz has been. And now that's not to say he wasn't consistent or wasn't out there and wasn't playing well. However, did he do anything to really just be like, okay, that's our guy? Not all the time consistently, but he did play well. But you wonder what that cap number is going to come in at when it comes to him. I could see him potentially, going to another franchise. Maybe someone overpays him, perhaps, because do have a few guards out there that are at the top of the game, which is you got a Will Fries and you got a Trey Smith. And Trey Smith got franchised, and Will Fries is the next man up. But after that, you never know what could happen. You have a guy from the Bears. We might talk about him a little later, perhaps, maybe. But you have a few different guys that are out there, and Dylan Raines may be throwing his hat into that mix too. We'll see what happens, but just based upon kind of his history, I'm not sure he ends up back here. Of course, I could be wrong, but that's just my thoughts on the matter. Now, of course, the Titans do have 44 million in salary cap, and maybe, just maybe, they want to create some more. So I just want to give a couple names that could potentially get cut. I'm going to start first with Nicholas Petit-Frere. Now, I know he's not necessarily going to be a lot in terms of getting cap space back, but I don't know if they can put him back out there at offensive tackle. I don't know how much confidence is in him and doing the job well. Last year was pretty rough. It was pretty rough to watch Nicholas Petit-Frere at times. One time he got rushed and it almost looked like he was about to do the splits out there on the field. It didn't look good at all times, and you just wonder what happened from his the beginning of his career with the Titans to now, because it seems like he's kind of regressing instead of progressing to get better. And it's because of that, I mean, honestly, not adequate play, that I could see him potentially leaving the Tennessee Titans in free agency or going somewhere else, perhaps. We'll see what happens, but just to me, not adequate enough play on the field. And I know it's not a cap number issue, but it's a play issue. And maybe he's taking up a roster spot for someone, either a rookie or someone they bring in a free agency that could potentially do the job better. Now, as far as the salary cap hit, I mean, it's $239,000, I'm sorry, in dead cap if they were to cut him. So not a ton there. Now, in this other gentleman, if they were to cut him, that'd be some pretty sizable money. Now, I was talking about Kenneth Murray at the linebacker spot. Now, $7.7 million in cap room saved if they are to cut him. Of course, cap hit $10.2 million. A lot of people talk about he was injured. I read some things and looked at a few different things and kind of put two and two together. And in pass coverage, he did have some issues. He wasn't necessarily always great in pass coverage over his career, but we'll see what happens with the Titans. But for the amount that they're paying him, I'm pretty sure they want him on the field more and with less injuries, of course, and maybe better in pass coverage. Maybe it wasn't all of his issue as well. There's always that thought. But there is some talk about giving Kenneth Murray his waivers and allowing him to go to another team. I mean, do I think it's a good decision? No, I don't think it's necessarily a good decision, because honestly, when you get rid of him, you got Jack Gibbons coming back off an injury. You got James Williams as a young linebacker. You got another, I believe, young linebacker as well, Otis Reese the fourth. I mean, you got Cedric Gray, who's another young linebacker. You get in my theme here. You got a lot of young linebackers. I'm not sure you need to get rid of a guy that's had some NFL playing experience, got a little learning on the job going on. I'm not sure you need to get rid of him, but hey, I am not the general manager, so my role is just to think on those things and kind of bring a little bit more of the facts from my eyes to the equation. But do I think they need to get rid of him? No. Let him play out next year. Then if you feel like it, hey, maybe so. Maybe you just revamp the entire room. Who knows? Maybe they have designs on trying to go after Nick Bolton, who the current general manager was there in Kansas City with him as well. So, maybe not. We will see what happens with Dylan Raines, with Nicholas Petit-Frere, with Kenneth Murray, and with Mr. Nick Westbrook and Kenny. But of course, we got to look around the entire NFL and look for some pieces that might fit the Tennessee Titans. We're going to go into those when we come back from this commercial break on Touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the commercial break, we are going to be talking about free agents that could potentially help this Tennessee Titans roster. Now, before we get into those free agents, though, I do have to mention what positions I think are positions of need and positions that they need to actually look at first and foremost. One of those is right tackle. You got to get a right tackle. You got a left tackle in J.C. Latham. You got a left guard in Peter Skoronski. You got Lloyd Cushenberry, probably be back next year. He is the starting center, by the way. I was mentioning earlier that they had brought in. It was Lloyd Cushenberry from the Denver Broncos. He's injured. He's injured. They believe he's tore his Achilles, but I believe he should be back to start the season next year. Another spot, look at right guard, and another spot to look at is edge rusher, especially if they're trying to get rid of Harold Landry. So those are 3 spots right there. Keep that in mind when I go through this list. Now, I could throw wide receiver out there, but honestly, do I think they go after a wide receiver at this point? Nah, looking at the market, it's not exactly the greatest of markets for wide receivers right now anyway, in terms of wide receivers that are available in free agency. So, could see them bringing back a Tyler Boyd, bringing Nick Westbrook-Kenny, and maybe getting a youthful wide receiver or a younger wide receiver, I should say, to bring in perhaps. But do I see them splurging on that position? No, I don't see them splurging on that position. But of course, I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. But these are 3 positions I think they really need to focus on. And of course, they involve the trenches where ball games are won. The first one in the potential free agency. Now I'm swinging for the fences in some of these for teams. And I've done that for the Colts. I've done it for the Texans, done it for the Jaguars. Titans are no different. So I'm going to have the swing for the fence pick and for some of these, and then also have just the probably more realistic pick. I know some people will be mad, some people will be happy, but hey, here we go. All right, the first one up, right tackle. Now, I know this guy is probably going to stay where he is, but if the Titans were able to pull this off and bring him here, I think fans would be happy with it. That'd be Ronnie Staley. That's the tackle for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, do I think he's leaving Baltimore? No, I do not think he's leaving Baltimore. But if he did, I think the Titans need to be on the phone with his agent and say, hey, we got a hole right here. Maybe we can move J.C. Latham over to the other side. You can just take his position over there on the left tackle. Hey, it's a thought. But anyway, Ronnie Staley is a free agent. Now, he does have a little bit of an injury history. I do have to say that. However, he is a mountain of a man. He can definitely run block, and he can definitely be nimble on his feet. That's in pass blocking, folks. So, yeah, I would say that would be a guy you want to throw some money at. Yeah, that would be a guy because you haven't had a solid left and right tackle for a few years if you're the Tennessee Titans, and that has to be something that has to be done and set up, or however you got to do it. It's got to happen, especially if you want your offense to grow and get better. Now, I do have a low end, maybe bargain value person that they could look at. And this person is very familiar with Bill Callahan. That would be Jedrick Willis. Now, he's not necessarily on the best of terms with the Cleveland Browns right now. And they probably aren't looking to bring him back. But if they brought him to the Titans, they could actually get him on probably a pretty good deal. probably, either right at or below market value for just his availability. Not necessarily saying he's the best offensive tackle in the NFL, but just saying they could probably get pretty good value for him, put him at the backside tackle, and allow Bill Callahan to continue the work he did with them in Cleveland, where he became a really good offensive tackle under his tutelage. I know that seems like probably an off the wall person to pick, but I just put the dots together, kind of did a little bit of study, and hey, maybe, just maybe, Bill Callahan can help Jedrick Willis recapture that magic. Now I'm going to switch over to the right guard position now. Again, taking another big swing. Will Fries. Will Fries is the number one guard available right now. He he played for the Indianapolis Colts. So if he came to the Titans, he'd be switching from the Colts to the Titans. I'm pretty sure some Colts fans would not like that. But if that happened, that would be basically weakening the Colts to make the Titans stronger. This is the second team I believe in the division that I've mentioned when it comes to Will Fries. The other one I believe was Jacksonville. So, he would be a heck of a pickup for them. Definitely can run block, definitely can pass block, and it could be a guy that could set the tone up front with Lloyd Cushenberry, with the Peter Skoronski, with the J.C. Latham as well. Yeah, I think that would be a solid addition for them. Of course, they'd have to pay him big, big money. Like I said, he's the number one guard out there now with Trey Smith, with the franchise tag. Hey, you're going to have to give up something to get Trey Smith. You don't have to give up anything to get Will Fries except for, a little cash cheddar, $1 bill, y'all. That's about it. Now, as far as the other guard I've got to mention there, that would be Bears guard Tevin Jenkins. Now, I know when you think about the Bears offensive line, you do not think about a guy that you want to pick up from that offensive line the way that Caleb Williams was running around last year. But I will say this, he's a solid offensive lineman. Pretty good in run blocking. He does whiff from time to time in pass protection. However, I think with Bill Callahan and the tutelage and the different things that he does with the offensive lineman. I've seen some of his drills at training camp, and boy, oh boy, yeah, they're real life in terms of playing situations that he puts them in to make them better blockers. And I think he could do that for Tevin Jenkins and, and turn all that potential into, definitely, bring some of that potential out of him, I should say. But it would be interesting. He's a pretty good sized guy. I will say that he's pretty good sized guy. I'll leave it at that. But hey, he could be a guy that could fit in there right guard and hey, make some things happen. And it wouldn't break your bank to do so. The last one position I mentioned, pass rusher. That's assuming that Harold Landry is gone and traded. They're going to need somebody to replace him. I thought of one gentleman. Now, his name came up last year when he was sitting out playing for the New York Jets. That would be Mr. Hassan Reddick. Now, he ended up playing for the New York Jets, but the season was already gone at that point. But I think this is a guy that can be a game changer. He can he probably, just looking at his information and looking at potential monies, $11.7 million, and it's still down $17.5 million from Harold Landry. So that's a $6 million less for a guy that can make even more of an impact. I mean, you forget Hassan Reddick had one of the most incredible sack seasons playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, look that up. Look up that season. He was everywhere. He could potentially do some of the same things for this Titans team. I know he's a little bit older. He's older now than when he was then. Not to say he's way older, but he could definitely do some things for the Tennessee Titans. Be that dominant alpha pass rusher on the outside that they need. Maybe align everyone else into the positions that they're supposed to be in, and definitely help Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat in the middle of that defense, because boy, oh boy, you can't double team everybody. And if you're trying to double team three of the people, you're still going to free somebody up or two people up. You just can't double team that many people and think it's going to be okay. especially if you got like I mentioned, a Hassan Reddick, a Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, and whoever they put out there at the other outside guy. It would be crazy. It would be wild to see. Now, of course, they do run the 3-4, so it'd be somebody on the nose, but or it might be Tavondre Sweat on the nose. Either way, you still got to account for him. That big man has got some nimble feet. I know you saw that return and that fumble. Yeah. He said he went back to he went back to football, Pee Wee football, and the first thing he was thinking, he said, was take it to the house. That is no stretch either. He really did say take it to the house. This is what he was thinking when he got the ball. I ain't even mad at him. Go do your thing, big dog. But hey, that's the end of the show. We'll see what the Tennessee Titans do in free agency. Of course, I am your host of the show, Mike Patton. You can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton82. That's MikePatton 82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. You can find me also on Blue Sky at the same tag. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE _general_MP. Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. I want to thank you all for tuning into this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.